first lecture is by Professor Madhusudana Pennaji on the significance of textual inputs for the practice of dhyana. Professor Pennaji is a professor and dean, Department of Indian Philosophy in Kavikula Guru Kalidasa Samskrita University, Ramtek, Maharashtra. And Professor Pennaji specializes in Yoga Shastra, Nyaya, and Vedanta philosophy. He has been awarded the Sahitya Academy Award in 2019 for his Mahakavya on Gulabarao Maharaj. He has 2 Mahakavyas, 8 Laghu Kavyas, and 30 translations and edited books to his credit. A great Sahityakara indeed of our times. Professor Pennaji is honored with honorary D.Litt by the National Sanskrit University, Tirupati, Andhra Pradesh, for his unique contribution to Indian philosophy. He has traveled to the Netherlands and was also the member of Indian delegation to Canada in the World Sanskrit Conference 2018. And that's where I got the bhagyam of meeting Professor Pennaji for the first time in person. Though I had read his papers and also books and known about his contributions. That's where that was the first occasion where I met Pennaji and got to know him. Now in these years, that connection has only strengthened by me learning a lot from Pennaji. And he knows 6 languages including German and has made DVDs on yoga, Indian philosophy and Samskrita literature. The Tirumala Peetham, established by Bhagavad Ramanujacharya in the 10th century, conferred Shastra Ratnakara on him, the title Shastra Ratnakara on him. And he has also received Pandit Satwalekar Award, Pandit Latkar Shastri Award, and Pandit Ghatate Award, and Somanath Trust Award with gold medal and title of the best scholar, and many such other very prestigious awards for his academic contributions and original insights that he has contributed to the system of Indian philosophy, and especially to the yoga philosophy in particular. Now it's an immense bhagyam of us to have such a very esteemed, distinguished professor among us to deliver on his invited talk on this very important topic of the connection between the textual inputs and the practice of dhyana. Professor Pennaji.
Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpada Shankaram Lokashankaram Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnana Anjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Yogena Chittasya Padena Vacham Malam Sharirasya Cha Vaidyakena Yopa Karottam Pravaram Muninam Patanjalim Pranjaliranatosmi Asmat Gurubhyo Namaha. Dear participants, at the outset, I first thank the organizers for remembering me on this occasion, because this is a very important topic that the organizers have thought of. This is meditation and textual inputs. And for this, I thank Dr. Jayaraman sir, a very close associate and a very good, promising young scholar of this time. Because Dr. Jayaraman sir has established for himself a very good name in the yoga circles. Now he is serving the institute, and I am confident that he will receive good encouragement there, and the institute will get benefited by his profound scholarship and sincerity. Now, the topic is textual inputs in the practice of meditation. This is very interesting that I have come across several people who have been practicing yoga, meditation. People think that yoga is different from meditation because some of the students say that yoga is asana, pranayama, shat karma. Meditation is something different. So some people say without practicing asana pranayam also you can practice meditation. Some others say, no, for that you require the asana pranayama. So that being the case, now a common man is in a state of flux that what to do, what not to do. Whether we are supposed to practice asana pranayam before meditation or directly can we go to meditation. Similarly, whether we should study the text or not. When we means the Kavikula Guru Kalidas Sanskrit University introduced the MA Yoga Shastra, the first one in the state of Maharashtra. So our university was the first one to introduce this. So when it was introduced, many of the yoga people, many of the yoga students complained that, sir, we are the students of yoga, and we are supposed to practice asana, pranayam, dharana, dhyana, etc. Shatkarma, of course. Then how can you insist on the study of these texts? Because it deviates. So by studying these texts, we get deviated. So we think that such study should not be made compulsory. It should be made optional. Some people complained. Then I had to explain to them that a true yogi does not need, of course, any study of scriptures like Ramana Maharshi, like Sadashivendra Saraswati, though he was a scholar. So I know that a true yogi does not require any textual input or study or scholarship, but people are of different types in the society. Some are of Uttama Adhikara. So we say that some people are of high standard, their qualification is high. So they are directly eligible for the experiences of yoga. But when it comes to Madhyama and Adhama, they are not directly and naturally qualified. Such people also should get the result of yoga. Then what to do? Who are these Madhyama and Adhama? In the Patanjali Yoga Sutra, we come across some sutras related to the Adhama, Madhyama, Tama. So you remember the sutra, Tivra Samveganam Asannaha. So Tivra Samveganam Asannaha, there he has made very clear that among the human beings also, we have people of different caliber, different qualification, different temperament. And according to that, the yoga method needs to be devised. So it is not the same for all, but at the same time, everybody is eligible for it gradually. So that being the case, the Uttama have no doubt at all. They have no doubt regarding the efficacy of yoga. But when it comes to Adhama and Madhyama, they very often get doubts. And doubt is, as you all know, an obstacle in the practice of yoga. Vyadhi, Sthana, Samshaya. Samshaya is the problem. And Jayanta Bhatta also says in the Nyaya Manjari that people are of different temperament and eligibility, that there are Ajnani, Jnani, Samshitamati, Bhrantamati. So people are there. Some people doubt. Some people do not doubt, but they get the wrong comprehension. That means they get the thing in a wrong manner. They are known as Viparyastamati or Bhrantamati. So such people are being there. How can we say that only one method is useful for all? Therefore, the textual input is very much necessary for the Adhama and Madhyama. Now, if we compare between these two also, the Adhama may be interested in the practice of yoga, but not really equipped with the necessary knowledge of that. They are interested, but not equipped with necessary knowledge. Madhyama, they are in the practice of yoga, unlike the Adhama. Madhyama are in the practice of yoga, but they may very often face the problem of Anavasthitatva and Alabdha Bhumikatva, the higher levels. And Uttama is, of course, who has already reached alabdha bhumikatva and the bhumi, and who has transcended the obstacle of anavasthitatva. So these are very subtle but very practical. So when a yoga practitioner reaches from the adhama stage to the madhyama stage, he naturally requires some textual inputs. If, of course, if he has a very good, efficient teacher, a Sadguru, then no text is required, he can directly go. But I have observed that the Sanskrit texts, especially the texts on Hatha Yoga, Raja Yoga, even on Vedanta, these texts help us a lot in our practice of yoga. Sometimes we don't get clear idea about the nature of yoga, the various types of yoga, their mutual relation, and the steps in the practice of yoga, especially meditation. Just as Aravinda Yogi has given right inputs in the poem Savitri, our ancient rishis also had given wonderful inputs in their texts. But we must be careful while choosing these texts also, because just as Kalidasa said, Purana mityeva nasadhu sarvam. Similarly, Purana mityeva nasadhu sarvam nachapi karyam navamityavadyam kavyam or karyam. The problem is, you cannot just discard something because it is old. You cannot outrightly accept something because it is new. All you are supposed to do is to discriminate, and you have to churn out the essence and accept it. So whatever is written in Sanskrit may not be useful. Unfortunately, many people have this understanding that if it is in Sanskrit, it must be chaste, it must be acceptable, authentic. But it is not the case in all matters, because so many Sanskrit books are there, but not all Sanskrit books give you right idea. And especially when it is a topic of this nature, yoga, that is practical, and meditation, it is practical experience, and of course it is personal experience. So when something is absolutely personal, how can you generalize that? How can you give inputs to others? How can you make it useful? So in this, our ancient writers on yoga had given some tips to us. For example, let us start with the Upanishads. In the Upanishad, especially the Shvetashvatara Upanishad, that is a beautiful Upanishad, and it contains a lot of information on the practice of yoga. And in this practice, when it came to the commentators, they had explained some of the matters in a clear manner. In the second chapter, the 8th mantra, the mantra says, this is Dhyana Yoga. So the mantra says, Trirunnatam sthapya samam shariram hrudindriyani manasa sanniveshya brahmodupena pratareta vidwan srotamsi sarvani bhayavahani is the mantra. Now, trihi unnatam sthapya shariram. This is a kind of, the reflection of this you can find in the Bhagavad Gita also. So, not Ruju. Rujukaya is not accepted. Samakaya should be there. So, unnatam, trihi unnatam sthapya shariram. That means when you sit for meditation, so you should see that your body is straight, in the sense balanced. Then hridi indriyani manasa sanniveshya. This thing you find in the Bhagavad Gita also. That manaha, indriyani, hridaya. These three are to be taken into account. Now this text says that hrudi indriyani manasa sanniveshya. So the instrument is manas, and the place of their mergence is hridaya. And what are to be merged they are the Indriya. Now, Indriya are not just physical, they are mental. That means they are energy only. They are of the form of energy. So, the Indriya, the various faculties that the nature has given to us, the Indriya are required to be merged into the Hridaya, but that you can do only with the help of Manas. This is Bhavana Yoga that Patanjali Maharshi speaks of. So, through your Bhavana, that means with the help of your Bhavana only, you take each Indriya, merge it into your Hridaya. This is Shanai Shanai Ruparame Dhritya Buddhya Dhritigrihitaya. Bhagavad Gita also says that it is Buddhi Dhritigrihita. So that Dhriti is required there. And Buddhi is the instrument. So what is this Dhriti? Dhriti is Dhairya. And especially when sits in meditation, he should have this Dhriti, that internal, a kind of conformment. Or you can say it is your conviction, a full conviction that now I am going into the state of meditation. Otherwise, if we are so excited, we don't get that state. Or even if we get that state, it will not continue for long. So that being the problem, this Manasa Indriyani Hridi Niveshya. So this is the order. And lot many things can be explained in this regard. Only one sentence, but very, very important in the practice of meditation, that Hridaya, Indriya, Manas. All the three are stated. If we remember the statement of Ramana Maharshi also, Hridi Visha Manasatvam, Chinvata Majjatava. Somewhere he stated that Hridi Visha, that means you enter into yourself, your Hridaya, Manasa, with the help of your mind. But two ways are prescribed there, Chinvata, Majjatava. Either through Jnana Yoga or through Dhyana Yoga. You can get into yourself. And he has specifically mentioned the word Hridi, Hridaya. And thus we find that the Shvetashvatara Upanishad mantra gives us a very clear step-by-step procedure for the practice of meditation. And not all the Bhashyakara, but Shankaracharya, he explains this in a very useful manner. He says, Pranayama Kshapita Manomalasya Chittam Brahmani Sthitam Bhavati. Now he says, mantra says that Hridi Visha Manasa, or you can say Hridi Indriyani Manasa Sanniveshya. Both mean the same. Okay, Manasa Sanniveshya, this is the instrumental case with Manas Shabda. That means it should be the instrument, Man, Vichar, Bhavana. So, Shankaracharya understands the importance of this word and says, Pranayama Kshapita Mano Malasya. He says the mind can enter into Hridaya only when the impurities are destroyed by the practice of pranayama. And we can note here that the original mantra of Shvetashvatara Upanishad does not contain a direct reference to pranayama, especially in the 6th mantra. So it doesn't, 8th mantra, there is no reference to the pranayama. But Shankaracharya understands, because he's a yogi, though he's called as Advaiti, he's a yogi. That's why long back, maybe 30-40 years back, some German scholar wrote an article, is Shankara their yogin or their Advaitin? Is he a yogi or an Advaiti? And he has given plenty of references saying that Shankaracharya is a yogi. And we in our tradition understand, know and believe that Shankaracharya is an Advaiti of high standard, and a high Advaiti is definitely a yogi. A high yogi may not be a definite Advaiti, but an Advaiti who has reached the top level, he is definitely a top yogi. But those people who practice or follow the Sankhya Yoga only, they understand only the Kaivalya, and they are not complete Advaitin. So that is the difference. But Shankaracharya explains several such subtle matters related to practice of yoga in many of his bhashya. And here also in the Shvetashvatara Upanishad bhashya, he explains that in order to get into the Hridaya, you require the help of mind, manas. But that manas, if it is filled with impurities, it cannot allow you to get into that state. So it is the main hindrance there. What kind of hindrance? Your vasana. And these vasanas being very strong, naturally our mind cannot get into the state of meditation. So how to get rid of these? Then the practical help is suggested by this great Acharya, that pranayama kshapita mano malinyam. That means the thought waves, they do occur. But if you constantly practice pranayama, then automatically you can get hold of prana. Then the prana and mana are interrelated, and sometimes it appears that they are the two sides of a single coin, prana and mana. So mana is also in your control. Then you can think of getting into your own hridaya. Hridaya is not physical heart, but the essence of being. So there we can enter, because mind, antahkarana, these are all not exactly physical, but they are the forces. Here, after saying this, Shankaracharya again explains, Prathamam Nadi Shodhanam Kartavyam. See, this is a very clear instruction by a very adept yogi to the interested aspirant. So what does he say? Prathamam Nadi Shodhanam Kartavyam. He doesn't just leave there with the instruction that one should practice pranayama. That's all. And here we find the difference between commentator and commentator, that even among the bhashyakara, some bhashyakara leave it to the student. And here, Adya Shankaracharya takes the student further, holding his hand, says, Prathamam Nadi Shodhanam Kartavyam. For what? In order to become eligible for the pranayama. So pranayama is a big word. It contains several things. But Shankaracharya understands the problem and says that the pranayama should begin with Nadi Shodhana. Prathamam Nadi Shodhanam Kartavyam Tataha Pranayame Adhikaraha. So this is a very clear admonishment to all the modern yoga practitioners who believe that yoga and of course pranayama can be practiced in any manner. Some people say without asana also pranayama can be practiced. Some people say without pranayama dhyana also can be practiced. But Shankaracharya records his instruction here out of his personal experience, that without Nadi Shodhana, Nadi Shuddhi, one cannot be eligible for the next level of pranayama. So that adhikara, eligibility, one acquires through the practice of Nadi Shuddhi, Tataha Adhikaraha. And he doesn't stop there. Again he says, Tataha Dakshina Nasika Putam Angulya Avashtabhya Vamena Vayum Purayet. So first he says, you close the right nostril and inhale through your left. So this is one. Vayum, Vamena Vayum Purayet. So when you sit for meditation, first you do Nadi Shuddhi, then other pranayama, because we have several types of pranayama. So according to the season, according to your body requirement, you can practice any pranayama for some time. Then you let your body relax and get into the state of meditation. So here he says, you breathe in through your left nostril. That is also an underlinable word is there. Yatha Shakti. Yatha Shakti is according to your capacity, as per your capacity. Because when yoga is practiced beyond our capacity, it leads to problems also, physical and psychological. Because psychological is nothing but the reflection of physical problems. Because psychosomatic, they are all related. So we get some problems when we do yoga excessively. That means going beyond our limits. That's why in Kumara Sambhava also, this Shankara says to Parvati, Apiswa Shaktya tapasi pravartase. So this is a very clear instruction that be in your limits and practice. So thus Shankaracharya says, Tataha Anantaram. After that, Utsrujya enam dakshinena putena samutsrujet. In the second one, he says, now gradually you breathe out through your right. This is Nadi Shuddhi, but Shankaracharya does not leave it to the student. He says, you practice step by step. And such valuable inputs we get from the texts. For example, in the Abhinavagupta Tantra Loka, very typically, this is a Tantra text. But that Tantra text also contains several valuable inputs in the practice of meditation. And Abhinavagupta gives several categories of yogi, Akala, Vijnana Kala, Sakala, all these. And then he says, what is the importance of Sat Tarka in the practice of yoga? And how much is to be taken into consideration from the Anga also? Because people, they generally forget the importance of Yoga Anga. Patanjali Maharshi has given dhyana before Samadhi, but he has not started the yoga with direct dhyana. So therefore, if a person wants to experience the beatitude of dhyana, then he should not ignore the two, yama niyama. Then all the Yogopanishads, they give valuable inputs about yama niyama. That means self-control, control of senses. So this kind of yama niyama are to be practiced rigorously. Then one can be eligible for asana. Then, okay, sthira sukham asanam, that's good. Then after that means asana sthairye prapte pranayama adhikaraha. Then he can get to pranayama. But here Shankaracharya adds that pranayama also you start through this Nadi Shuddhi. So Nadi Shuddhi is not directly mentioned in the Patanjali Yoga Sutra or in the Bhashya also. So these are the practical inputs that we get from the textual, the various commentaries, direct texts, even the Yoga Vasishtha. So these texts are in Sanskrit, okay, but they are of immense help, especially when we practice yoga. If somebody is there, he is giving instructions, we practice, okay, we believe in him. But when we practice meditation and try to get the higher level of spiritual life, then these inputs, they stand us in good stead, I believe. And the Yoga Vasishtha also, especially in the Upashama Prakarana, when we read the story of Uddalaka on the Gandhamadana Parvata, we find that Uddalaka step by step practiced that and he reached the higher level of meditation. So I have personally derived a lot of benefit from them, because these books are not to be taken as books. These are direct instructions from those accomplished yogins, I believe. So therefore, whether it is Shankaracharya's Bhashya, whether it is Yoga Vasishtha text, or Bhagavad Gita, or Abhinavaguptacharya in his Tantra Loka, or take any name. But these are the instructions. Sometimes they may not be explicit, but we require to take, that is as per our capacity, we must take each sentence, analyze, and gradually practice and derive the benefit. So this is the gradual progress in the practice of yoga. Thus, in the story of Uddalaka also, we find that he thinks that Nirmalatvam, Adainyam, these are all the forces with him. That means all positivity one acquires before getting into the state of meditation. Many people have a kind of fascination for the state of meditation, but many people are not qualified for that. That's why students also complain very often that we want to sit in meditation, we close, but we get all the thoughts. Then I explain to them, throughout the day, when you put yourself to all worldly attractions and you give importance to them, so naturally mind takes them and thinks that this is important. And that's why, because of its natural quality, the mind recollects all. And in subconscious mind, something is already stored, that something is already stored in the subconscious mind. And when the time comes, subconscious mind says, is this the thing not to be remembered? Is this the thing not to be remembered? Actually, we remember everything. When mind recollects things unnecessarily, especially in the state of meditation, one gets disturbed. But Buddha Bhagavan says in the Vishuddhimagga that, especially when he was in the Vidisha, he had experienced these, that when you sit for meditation, why these recap? Then he says, I have given importance to them. So when you yourself attach importance, these are bound to disturb us in the state of meditation. Now, I read the Upashama Prakarana Uddalaka story. First, Uddalaka sits in Padmasana. Then Omkara, he chants Omkara. That chanting reaches the top of his head, Brahmarandhra. Then Akara, Ukara, Makara iti, Tanekadha Samabharat, Tadetad Omiti. So all the Matra Traya, Omkara he chants. Then the prana, the energy that fills his body, total, complete body. Then he now exhales. See, this Rechaka, he practices now, and through Rechaka, total that prana gets out, and now he empties up himself. So this point, this passage is very important. So first in asana, then he practiced Omkara, then he filled his body with the vital energy prana, then he did Rechaka. Through that, he emptied up himself. See, the practice of Omkara is very useful in the practice of meditation. Because when people complain that pranayama, we don't want to practice, but we want to get the state of meditation, I would like to ask them to study such texts like Yoga Vasishta, so that definitely they will get valuable inputs. And these will, when to practice Rechaka, when to practice Puraka and Kumbhaka. Of course, Shankaracharya, he is given a different explanation of these, that it is not just pressing your nostril, but getting the feeling that Rechaka means just thinking that the entire universe or the world is mithya, and Puraka means Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma, and Kumbhaka. So these are all taken in the Advaita sense, but very useful. I think the time is over. So I stop here. There are so many things that Abhinav Guptacharya also has explained. Various Sanskrit texts explain the movements in the practice of meditation, but time limit is there. So thank you all. Namaste.
Namaste, sir. I felt really bad in to indicate the time limits. Extremely sorry for that. Such a
no, sir. No. That is as organizer, that is your duty, and I'm obliged. No problem.
Such a pravaha of wisdom means from a varied sources, right? From the yoga literature, to Abhinavagupta, Tantraloka, then to the views of Jayanta Bhatta, and even Vishuddhimagga, Bodha. So you have traversed the entire spectrum of Indian philosophical wisdom, and emphasize the importance of textual study. It cannot be emphasized in any more emphatic manner than this. So that was and I was reminded of this Vyasabhashya Vachana, where we see Agamena Anumanena Dhyanabhyasa
Rasena Tridha Prakalpayanna Yogam.
Labhate Yogam Uttamam.
Wonderful, sir. Wonderful.
So Agama is at the source of Abhyasa Rasa. So that has been very, very, very profoundly brought out through your lectures, and we are greatly benefited, sir. Thank you. Nagaraj.
Thank you so much, sir. And I pay my namaskarams to Nagaraj sir also. Just I saw him. So pranam, sir.
Namaste, namaste.
Namaskar, sir.
I am so glad to have Professor Penna in our conference. Actually, I remember his early research study began with yoga only. And repeatedly he is coming back to yoga area. It was his MPhil. I remember his MPhil days.
Correct.
He started with Abhinavagupta's commentary on Yoga Sutras. And that beginning in yoga is not leaving him, or he is not leaving him. So it is.
I am not leaving Penna, sir.
He is repeatedly coming back to this area, and all these decades of his university career, he contributed to textual research enormously, and the world is also getting benefited at large from his vast references, vast textual knowledge. So I am so glad to see all this progress in him, and I'm grateful in behalf of Indic Academy for his contributions perpetually to our activities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Namaskaram, sir. And I really feel blessed that I always say that I see Nanagaru in you. So Nanagaru is blessing me, and I'm very, very happy, sir. It is his Bhiksha. Thank you. Namaste, sir.
Sir, there is a question, just a question. That is the Shankara Grantha that you quoted. Was it the Vivarana Vyakhyana of Yoga Sutra?
Which one, sir?
The Shankara Grantha, the Shankaracharya Grantha that you quoted. There is a question.
No, that is Shvetashvatar Upanishad Bhashya.
Shvetashvatar Upanishad Bhashya. Yes.
So Adi Shankaracharya. Yeah. But Shankara Vivarana, it is also very useful, but more logical. That is dialectical. So you find more syllogistic expressions. Yeah, that's true, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Thanks a lot
Thank you,
for
sir.
taking the time out on a Sunday afternoon and joining.
Sir, it is our work. So I'm really happy, very happy. Thank you so much, sir. Namaste.
Namaste, sir. Namaste, sir.